Hey guys, and welcome to another video. Today, we have two interesting themes to talk about: the unique dynamics of a foreigner's marriage to a Filipino. How unique can it be? I don't know. Maybe not at all. But anyway, the other theme is the often misunderstood difficulties of an autistic marriage. And guys, for us to have something in common to draw examples from, I'm going to explain in short history of my marriage to my Filipino wife. You see, guys, we got married in January 2018 after knowing each other online for only 9 months, and and on my first trip to the Philippines to meet my wife in real life, we were already engaged. And after 2 weeks together in the Philippines, planning and preparing, we got married. And after that, we spent one amazing week together on our honeymoon in Boracay. It was an amazing time, guys. But then sadly, I have to go back to Norway. And we went back to an LDR. And on the airport, we both cried so much. We both felt like a piece of our heart was ripped out. But then I was back in Norway. And we continued to talk every day. And after, yeah, I think 3 months, she come to Norway to stay with me. And when she arrived for the first time, oh, what a feeling. And have it on video too. Anyway, we spent 3 amazing months together in Norway, guys. I can still remember it freshly in my mind. It was so amazing. We were so filled with wonder, love, excitement, and happiness. And those 3 months ended with a celebration of our marriage with my family and friends here in Norway, prepared by my family. So we didn't have to stress at all. Then sadly, she had to go back to Philippines because at that time I didn't have the income to apply for family immigration for her. And then we started a cycle of her staying with me in Norway for 3 months before having to returning to Philippines, to wait there for 3 months before returning to Norway again to begin the cycle anew. But luckily enough, around a year later, in April 2019, I traveled to Philippines again for the second time, and we took part of a grand family reunion with the family. It was an amazing time, guys, and we visited the farmland in the mountain where the family came from and where my wife grew up. And then after those three, not three, and after that amazing month, we went back to Norway together for the first time. Right away when we arrived in Norway, we applied for family immigration, even if we knew that I didn't fulfill all the requirements to apply for it with her because I didn't have a stable income yet. I did have benefits from the government, but it was time based, and it wasn't enough. I needed to wait for my disability benefits because I have autism and it's hard for me to find work here to get approved. We knew it would get approved, but it could take time. And we knew that usually it took the government 8 months before approving family immigration. And we were right. I got approved after 4 months or something, but then COVID struck, and we needed to wait for 10 months before we got approved. We had to wait for around 18 months, and it was a hard time, guys. We were stuck in a 30 square meter studio apartment without a bedroom. We didn't have a lot of money, and we were stuck together 24/7. And sure, but slowly, we fell out of the honeymoon phase and we started to argue and to notice things about each other we hadn't seen before. We argued a lot. But then, Eventually, we got through it and our relationship was strengthened. And then she attended Norwegian class and began a full-time job as a production worker. And I got my driving license and a job as a delivery driver. And the next period that lasted about two and a half to 2.5 to 3 years, we both worked a lot. My wife worked a lot and I didn't work that much, but I worked too. And when we both come home tired, we ended up fighting. We ended up fighting a lot because we're each so tired to try to understand each other. And then, guys, after 3 years, we had worked hard, both of us, and I, I can admit that my Asawa worked the hardest because she's so strong, so amazing. And anyway, we, we was able to save enough money to buy this wonderful apartment here in Norway and enough money to travel to Philippines last December and buy property and house in Philippines for us and her family. We really managed all that, but in a way it took a toll on our relationship. And now, in our last phase of marriage, when we finish all our house related goals, we happen to find a balance in life. And right now, guys, our marriage is really happy. And now, guys, it's time to discuss the difficulties I mentioned in the start of the video. You see, the first difficulty I noticed came up in the second phase of our marriage when we were stuck in an apartment without a lot of money for 18 months. You see, when we started to fall out of the honeymoon phase and we started to notice those small things about each other that kind of annoyed us, we started fighting a lot more. And because of the COVID and because we didn't have a lot of money, we didn't really have a life outside the house. We were stuck. We were stuck together. We didn't have time apart to meet each other. So we didn't have anywhere to go to calm down and to think over things. So we ended arguing a lot. And the Filipino usually have a silent treatment. They don't want to say anything that is hurtful, so they don't talk. At least my wife is that way. And I don't really like that at all. And I am getting better at that now. I think that can actually be a good thing. But because we didn't have time apart, my wife is continuing to get annoyed even if she was not talking. We didn't have space to calm down so that we can come together later and really talk about the problems. So it was really, really hard. And the second difficulty I noticed, I think, is actually same underlying problems. But anyway, when we both were working, we had a lot of time apart. But you know, when we were both tired from work and come together in the evening, well, she was working night shift and me too, so yeah. When we come home and I forgot to cook food or something, we get really annoyed each other. We get really angry and we still only notice things about each other we didn't like. Of course, there was a lot of happy times too, but I feel like the times when we argued happen too often. And I have to say this, most of the time I was happy, of course, but the times when we fought was terrible. And it often happened because we were too tired to try to listen and to understand each other. And then, guys, the third difficulty I have noticed came up in this third phase of our marriage when we have balance and everything is supposed to be happy. But sometimes when you get too emotional or communication breaks down and we stop listening, stop trying to understand, and we start fighting. It doesn't happen a lot, but it happens. And when I take a step back, I can really, really understand how to avoid them. And I know what to do, but still it continued to happen. Because in the moment I forget. I forget to try to listen and to try to understand. I don't think that it is a problem unique to an autistic marriage or like a multicultural marriage. I think that is a difficulty that is normal in all relationships. All relationships can break down because of bad communication. You see, I have autism, right? I have Asperger's syndrome. I'm an ASPI, right? And I'm married to a Filipina. And I'm a Norwegian, culture differences and neurotypical and autistic differences. Communication is often not commu- communication is never perfect. And most couples have periods to fight and periods where they don't communicate well. But I think that for us who's autistic, it can be harder. And we need to be more ready. We need to work much harder on the communication in the relationship to make it work. Normally, a lot of communications happens non-verbally. Body language. A look here, everything. You're supposed to read each other, understand. But that is something I'm really, really bad at. I still cannot read my Asawa's body language most of the time. I try. I know well now, so I can see signs, but need to concentrate to see them. So for us, verbal communication and pre-arranged signs is really important. But of course, it's really hard for her to remember that and think about that when she's really, really tired, right? And of course, she can be annoyed too that she always needs to try to understand me, right? So I understand her. It's really difficult, to keep up good communications in a marriage. We have a strong foundation in a relationship because we truly understand each other. But still, our difficulties with communication is always going to pop up and cause conflict in a relationship, and we really need to navigate that. The reason I want to make this video, guys, is that there's not a lot out there on the topic of autistic marriages, right? Relationship is usually kind of this the same thing, right? I feel there's a lot out there about how the the neurotypical part of the relationship feel like they are alone, that the partner doesn't understand them, that doesn't give them what they really want. They feel like the partner is not that intimate with them. They are mentally and physically withdrawn. That they don't really want to show physical affection. They don't feel like they get the physical affection they crave. And I think that can be true. But the thing is, I can't really understand those autistic people who doesn't feel the need to show physical affection, don't really crave physical affection. Me myself, I always been craving it. But before I met my wife, people would describe me as not a really affectionate guy. And right now, my wife tells me, "Oh, Tony boy, you're too much," uh, which with which she means I am too affectionate, way too affectionate. You may ask, did I become more physical affectionate? Am I more affectionate right now than I was before? The answer is no. I've always been that way. I've always been very affectionate. But before I showed it to animals, right? I hugged my dog, my cat. I was really affectionate to them because it was safe. I couldn't really like cross a boundary. I will never hurt them, right? I will never make them feel uncomfortable. Maybe I did, but the animals, especially dogs, always want affection, right? I think, like me, most people with autism, I may be wrong, This is only my side based. This is only my side based on my experiences. Before, I really wanted to show affection. I want people to hug me. I want to hug people, right? But I was too afraid to try. I was afraid to cross a boundary to make them feel uncomfortable. I was afraid of making mistakes that made people not like me. I don't want to feel like a failure. I I just was too afraid because life life is already so hard for a lot of us with autism, right? Everything is really hard. We don't really fit in, and you want to try to fit in, but you can't really read people easily. You don't really know what they need based off their body language, right? And often, like what you need is not what they need. That's next question. Do to others what you want others to do to you, and that's not really that easy to follow because very often what I want people to do to me is not what they want me to do to them. That's at least my experience. Again, I may be wrong. You see, once I had a crush on a girl, right? This girl, she knew a guy that had died there, right? And when we went to Oslo City on a class trip, there was a memorial there. She started crying, right? She started crying, sitting down, and I really wanted to go comfort her, right? But like we're not that close yet, and I didn't know if she want to get hugged by me, if it was okay for me to circle back to sit next to her. I was afraid of making things worse. But then a friend of her stepped in, right? And sat next to her, hugged her, stroked her back, and letting her lean into her, right? And she looked at me with an expression saying, "You moron! Don't you have empathy at all?" That was so hurtful, guys. So hurtful. And after that, I got more confused, of course. Like, it's not really until I met my wife that I become affectionate because I felt safe doing it with her. She understood me and I knew that she loved me, right? So I was not afraid of making mistakes. And she told me when she didn't want it. Or she like, ugh, retreating, right? But I know that she loves me and I know I can try again and try again. I know that it's safe. She loves me. She understands me. So to you guys who have a partner that is autistic and not really affectionate, just tell them that they should not be afraid of doing it. And if they don't really like it at all, feel comfortable with touching it, ask them that, tell them that you need it, that you need this physical affection, right? Just tell them when you need it. And if they love you, they will give it to it because they love you. And maybe they are like me. They are really affectionate, but afraid, still afraid to make mistakes because of previous experiences. Let's talk about it, guys. I haven't really talked much about the problems my intercultural marriage has caused. And I think that is because it haven't really caused a lot of problems. Because when you go into a intercultural marriage, right, you know there's going to be differences. You know it's going to be difficulties. You're both ready for it. You're ready to go that extra mile. I think that have actually helped us navigate our artistic marriage. So I think that being in an intercultural marriage made it easier to navigate being in an artistic marriage. And maybe being in an intercultural marriage is easier for me too, because I always struggle and try to fit in socially, to try to understand other people. I really work really hard to, to do that, to try to understand others. And the difficulties I meet in my intercultural marriage is the same problems I know I will have met if I was in a relationship with a Norwegian. So yeah, that it's the same problems I have met when I have tried to befriend other people. There's nothing unique to in the cultural marriage. So I think the problems of my autistic marriage is overshadowing the problems an intercultural marriage could cause. And in the end, it is all from the same underlying problem, that is communication or lack of communication. So to end this video, if you are in a relationship, keep up communication. Try to understand each other. Keep an eye and an ear open and listen. And if there's something you don't understand, ask. You're a team. You're partners. You're there for each other. Don't be afraid. Of course, nobody can read each other's. Of course, nobody can read each other's mind. So don't accept. So don't expect the partner to do. Tell them. And if you don't understand, ask them. Anyway guys, I hope this video have been helpful, and if it have, I'm happy. If it have not helped, I'm sorry, but I hope at least it had been entertaining. Anyway guys, see you in the next video, and good luck to you.